Welcome back. You're still watching On Point. Now, today and tomorrow, big weekend for the Electoral Commission because it's opened voting stations throughout the country today and tomorrow for the weekend's final registration drive. Sadly, the IEC says that this being the last opportunity for eligible South Africans to register to vote, we have seen young people who have not showed up in their numbers. The Commission remains eager for them to particularly the first-time voters, to register. And yesterday we spoke to a number of the country's parties to talk. We spoke to the youth leagues, so the youth movements of those parties. And there were some parties that we didn't get to, and we're going to take this discussion further now as we get youth representatives from the ACDP, the UDM and the Freedom Front Plus. In studio with me, I have Bongani Khanyile. Thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
In Cape Town, we have from the UDM, Masonwabe Nqawe, who's with the UDM. Thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to you. And the Freedom Front Plus is represented by Tammy Wessels, who joins us from the Free State. All right, to all of you, I'm going to ask you the same question very quickly, if I can get an answer. The young are not registered to vote in their numbers. Let's start here in Johannesburg. Why is that? Has your party failed to reach them? What's going on?
Peter, there are various issues that young people are facing. Firstly, young people are disgruntled about the ruling party, and the rhetoric is, well, if the ANC won't deliver, then what's the point of voting? There's political consciousness that we as the ACDP are trying to drive out there. There's an alternative home for those that feel the ANC is not the party to vote for. So that's the rhetoric we're trying now to dispel. So we're saying to young people, there's only 16% that turned out of the eligible first-time voters, which is disturbing. And if they want a godly government, the ACDP is the credible party for them. I mean, there are 3 commissions of inquiry, one that deals with state capture, that tells you the political rot that's there. So we have an alternative home. We can lead the government in a biblical, solid, religious way.
So what you're saying is that it's the ANC's fault, basically. All right, let's go to the Western Cape. Masonwabe, why aren't young people registered to vote? 16% of first-time voters. Has the UDM failed to reach them?
Thank you so much, Peter, for hosting me, and thank you for the opportunity. Well, like any investor in a sphere, you invest in order to get some returns. For the past 5 elections, I mean, it has been shown, we have inquiries and any other public known information to show that when people or young people are investing their votes, they get to be neglected, they don't get positive returns. As a UDM, I mean, like before this, for instance, this interview, I've been on the ground working with my fellow young people to encourage them to get registered to vote, to guide them, and also to tell what need to be done. I took some in some parts of the Western Cape to the nearest public voting stations to also, I mean, Home Affairs Department to collect, I mean, the IDs. So we are on the ground asking them to be part of the democracy that they want to see, to be part of the democracy that they are living in, and also not only that, but to get an opportunity to be heard, to get some people to represent them very well. I mean, this year we don't want to preach what is already in the public domain about the corruption that is taking place. They already know. Well, fortunately, our youth is very much advanced in terms of accessing information. So as the UDM, we're calling them to give us an opportunity, get registered, and see a change that they want to live in.
All right, advanced in gathering information, but certainly not inspired to go and register to vote. Tammy Wessels, is it the same for your party, that despite perhaps what I've heard from the other two guests, that there might be discontent with the governing party, somehow the opposition parties are also still struggling to get young people to register to vote? Why is that?
Thank you, Peter, and to the viewers at home. I think there are a multitude of problems. And one of them I do think is, if you look at Africa is currently the biggest electoral group. And if you look at the political picture,
All right, Tammy.
we have all this.
All right, Tammy, we're struggling to hear you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get our team to dial you up again, and we can come back to you. In the meantime, we'll continue with our discussion with Bongani and Masonwabe. And, you know, yesterday I got the same story, that young people are disgruntled with the ANC, the opposition parties in particular, blaming the governing party. But that's what elections are for. You're supposed to sell a compelling message to these young people. And I wonder if this isn't more than just apathy, it's despondency, saying, I don't know who to vote for because all of these parties are not speaking my language. Let's start with you, Bongani.
Well, political parties have been to blame. Partly they're culpable of that because generally manifestos are actually not geared for young people. But as the ACDP, you know, we've gone to the ground, we know what the issues are. Access to education, institutions of higher education. We are saying, if you let us govern, we will open those doors.
But they're not even going to vote for you because they're not registered. And so you failed to convince them.
Well, this message inspires them to register. Remember, they're saying we're not voting at all because we are not getting what we want. Young people have issues around data access, for instance. And we've got a template in Botswana where there's data, and what's happening there? Young people are showing up because the people are speaking on the issues that are touching young people.
Masonwabe, I'm going to ask you the same question as well, in that if you had inspired young people that your way is the way, surely they would have gone to register to vote. Are they also fed up with your party?
Well, Peter, it is not too late. I mean, we're still having some few hours to get registered. We've been engaging with a number of people, the youngsters, to get registered. I mean, for instance, we've got AMA 2000 who this year qualify to be part of the general elections to elect their preferred leaders. We have been doing this. I mean, we can't really say, I mean, the lacking number or the majority that is not registered is coming. We can't identify where they're coming from, but then we still having hope that in the last few hours they will be registered. We've got many issues affecting young people specifically. I mean, the preschool or out of school premises, we are challenged with youth unemployment, lack of business opportunities. We are challenged with poor health. We are challenged with a problem of substance or drug and alcohol abuse.
I think the problems are quite well known.
If you finish your education, whereas you can't access job opportunities and you can't open the businesses, you still have to pay you still have to pay for your education, which again is increasingly, I mean, that is not accepted in terms of interest.
Masonwabe, I'm going to interrupt you because I think the problems are quite well articulated. I think everybody knows what the problems are. But the issue isn't so much what the problems are, is who do they believe can fix them? Tammy, let's try you again. Are you finding it difficult to convince young people that you have the solutions and that's why they haven't registered to vote?
You know, I think that it is a multitude of problems, and specifically if you look at unemployment in South Africa, the largest age group of people in population in South Africa are the youth. But if you look at the number of unemployed youth, we are above 57% of unemployed youth. The youth have to focus on their futures, and instead of fighting for their futures and going to the polling stations, They are rather focusing on being productive and on working and on doing what they can in the economy. And I think that we need to find a middle ground between those two, to focus on equal opportunities, to focus on economic stimulation, but also to empower our youth and to explain to them that everything you see, everything you do has to do with politics, and therefore they cannot only partake in an economic stimulation of the country, but also in going to the ballot boxes and, as the AC's election campaign says, access track your crisis, so that they can actually make their mark and partake in the multiple fields that South Africa has to offer them as youth.
All right. So again, I'm going to put it to all of you that as parties, you have failed to reach these young people. I'm not sure that you even know where they are because they haven't showed up. They've lost faith, trust. I don't know. That there is definitely a disconnect between the words that you're saying and their taking action. And what we have seen is that when they are inspired, they do take action. Hashtag Fees Must Fall. We've seen those powerful movements take grip. And I wonder if they're saying, forget politics, we're going to do it our way. And that's why they haven't registered to vote. Let's start with you, Tammy, once again.
Thank you so much, Peter. I think that we're in a case shall we call it a system where we see that anarchy and standing up against things, for example, the Fees Must Fall that you so rightly named, students and young people believe that anarchy is the way forward. And I believe that South Africa as a civilization has failed these students. We and the ruling party to a great extent has taught you by example that if you break and you burn, that is the way you achieve something in South Africa. And I think as opposition parties, specifically leading up to the 2019 election, we have a great task at hand, and we need to show by our manifestos, by what we're saying, and not only what we're saying, but what we're doing, that they need to give us an opportunity. They need to make opposition parties great, and they need to give us an opportunity to lead and to show them the way, and to show them that violence and anarchy and protest like Fees Must Fall is not the way forward. They need to partake in the system, they need to become councillors, they need to become MPLs, they need to become MPs, and they need to make a difference in the South African political atmosphere. They are the majority. If they vote, they can take this stand and they can make South Africa great.
Masonwabe, I'm just wondering, as a young person, when they look at these political parties, and yours in particular, for example, they'll see the general and they'll say this party is much like the other parties in terms of the way it looks, older people representing us. They don't see too many young faces in leadership. Is that perhaps contributing to their disillusionment in terms of whether these opposition parties can actually bring about change? They're almost lumping you in the same as the governing party.
Perhaps let me correct right there, Mhlekazi. Well, you saying the UDM is having all people representing them or in the parliament or in the leadership, and you refer to General Olomisa. Mhlekazi, we also have deputy president of the party who's still a youngster who participated in many activities assisting the young people. He was involved in the Fees Must Fall strikes around the country, visiting the satellites. We have, all over the country or in where we govern or we represented, we have councillors which are still youngsters. So that gives the outsiders an opportunity to see that we actually do invest in young people. We have myself and other colleagues of mine from the entire country. As we speak, for instance, on the ground, I have some people who are visiting, the victims of fire in Alexandra. We've got some young people again who are on the ground in the Eastern Cape to speak or to convince young people to vote. And I again want to clear this perception from everyone in the country who's watching now, and also to you as the pillars of communicating to the needy, that UDM is not centered or is not central to general. There are many opportunities, and we do physical touch with the ground, with the people on the ground.
So you have a young face, but then why isn't that young face translating into young voters registering to vote for you?
How do you conclude so? Because I am saying to you, Deputy President Kwankwa was on the grounds during the Fees Must Fall struggle to interact and also to get to the cause or to the reason, I mean, to carry their problems and grievances, to carry them and to communicate to the relevant stakeholders. I myself, I mean, been visiting many, I mean, areas to speak to the young people and then escalate our issues to our senior leadership, because, I mean, you can't blame us. We only have like 4 seats in the National Assembly, so you wouldn't expect everyone or all the categories or all the faces to be there. If young people or South African entirely in the globe can give us an opportunity, they will see much more people speaking out in terms, I mean, of issues that are related to them.
Okay.
Give us an opportunity, we will show you.
All right, okay. I hear your point, but the reality is, as you said, only 16% of eligible first-time voters have registered to vote.
Yep.
That means all the parties haven't been able to capture their hearts and minds.
I disagree. There are stakeholders. Political parties don't exist in a vacuum, Peter. There's politics. It stands from the formative years. There's got to be political consciousness. What are we teaching our students, our pupils? You've got to teach our pupils contemporary history. Okay, then they understand where political parties fit in the whole bigger scheme of things. And that has been missing. And then they come to the community without the knowledge. We cannot, as young people, this is my appeal, ACDP's appeal to the youngsters, we cannot outsource our right to franchise. Once we grapple with where we come from, how did we get to here as a nation?
Masonwabe has articulated very well that young people are aware.
Yes.
They know what they want.
There's space, Peter. I am sitting here today, and these people, young people must know, I'm sitting here today, I'm an NEC member of the ACDP. That's the highest decision-making body. There's space for us. That means we are geared towards young people. We are saying we cannot leave young people behind. They are the future of this nation.
Tammy, how much influence and how much voice does the youth wing of the Freedom Front Plus have in terms of the bigger picture for the party? Because maybe that's also one of the challenges, is that you might have positions, you might have presence, but do you have influence?
Thank you, Peter. I have to agree with my colleagues from the ACDP in saying that if you look at our structures, I'm on the NEC of our party, and if you look at our structure and how our youth wing actually it works alongside, it also integrates with our national system, it actually has the opportunity for the youth to have a greater say in our party than, for example, if we would call them the adults or the older people in our party. If you look at our councillors as well, we do not believe in a quota system, not in age, not in gender. And if you look at the automatic selection of our councillors, more than a third of our councillors classify as youth. More than a third of our councillors are women. If you look at our MPLs and the age of our MPLs, I'm an MPL myself, and I'm youth leader of the party. If you look at our members of parliament, one of our members in parliament is one of the youngest members in parliament at this stage. He's in the top 5. So I do think that our party encourages youth. We've gone out with our election campaign to say that we need to have youth. Youth is the future of the country, and the youth need to build. We need to build a better future for the youth, but the youth need to be active and partake. And I think as the Freedom Front Plus, within our structures and within our councillors and our levels of governance, I think we are well represented.
Masonwabe, I'm going to ask you, one of the stories that we're running with today is that the IEC has been blocked from entering certain areas. The locals saying service delivery hasn't happened, therefore we do not want the IEC to register, and nobody is going to vote. Why is it that people think that by not voting for the opposition, things can change? They seem to think that we're not going to vote, finish and Clark, because you haven't delivered, Mr. Ruling Party. But surely an election is about, if the governing party has failed, then the opposition should be voted for. And this is where you step in. How do you convince those people to allow the IEC officials to come in, register people to vote so that they can vote for an alternative?
Well, one of the reasons why people should vote, it gives them an opportunity to express their worries or to express that they are angry. So not to vote is not a good sign of doing so. We need to punish those whom will give them an opportunity to represent us. So, well, it's just not acceptable that we have people who resort of not participating in the elections. It's not going to resolve the issue in hand. So what we need to do is to punish those whom will give them a chance for the past many years, but they decided to be feeding themselves or to fulfill their needs and neglect us. Those whom we gave them an opportunity to represent us, but they decided to represent a certain or a minority group in the country. So it's just not acceptable that we have people who are just neglecting or rejecting the entire election system. So a way of rooting out this, is addressing the ill acts from the current leadership is to cast your vote and be heard.
All right, okay, I'm going to start wrapping up now. I'm going to give you 30 seconds each to say your final thoughts, and also, I suppose, give a plea to the young that are watching at the moment to go out and register to vote. Let me start with you here in studio, Bongani. And as you give your final 30 seconds, also maybe just explain to me if you think that young people know that their vote matters and counts and that they can change their lives if they vote.
Yeah. Young people aren't aware that by voting their lives will change. In fact, that there's an outcry for the change in status quo is there. But what we need is to conscientize them that the only way to change it is to actually cast a vote. Because when you don't change anything, if you don't vote for them, that means the current leaders will remain and you're still going to be disgruntled. So here's an opportunity to say, if this current crop, and that's what democracy is about, if this current crop of the ruling party is not assisting me, where is credible opposition? And we've come thus far, 25 years of democracy, there is credible opposition.
Okay. Fantastic. Tammy, also in 30 seconds, do young people understand their vote counts and can change things? Your final message to them. All right, it looks like we've lost Tammy there, unfortunately, which is a pity because I really wanted to hear what her thoughts were. But Masonwabe, perhaps you can conclude for us.
Fellow young people, it is our opportunity, to express our dissatisfaction or in terms of not getting a fair or a well-needed representation. By 2000, we are old enough now to cast or to practice your democratic right. You are faced with the challenge of unemployment after finishing your studies. Business opportunities are blocked. So practice your right. Imagine if I don't vote and someone next to me is not voting, it means now after the elections I will accept whatever decision that is being taken, and I cannot complain because I didn't form part of that decision, so it's just gonna bind me. Practice your right, vote, and take out or punish whoever that has been in power or whoever that has been given an opportunity to have access in the state affairs.
Okay.
Punish them, change.
All right, okay. Masonwabe, thanks very much indeed. And that's where we're going to have to leave it, unfortunately. Tammy, thanks very much for joining us. Apologies for the breakdown in communications there. Bongani, thanks very much indeed as well for joining us. And let's hope you galvanize the young people to get out there and vote, because it's their future and it's your future. And so You can't shape that future unless you register to vote. You've got today and tomorrow. It's a final opportunity. And that's it for On Point for now. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. At the top of the hour, you'll be joined by Kirshni Govender as she takes you through SA Today. Bye-bye.